Good evening, everyone. This is Patricia, and I am traveling for history. I am so excited to talk about this house right here in front of me. This is one of my favorite buildings in Burlington. In fact, I am in Burlington, Vermont, and back in the day, I used to offer a waterfront tour, and this building was on it. Waterfront. You're wondering, waterfront? Where's the waterfront? Panning over here to the west. Hopefully, there we go. Right. Oops. Right in the center of the picture there is the Lake Champlain with the Adirondacks as a backdrop. Lake Champlain got its name in 1609 when French explorer Samuel de Champlain discovered it, and then he promptly named it after himself. So that's why this is on the waterfront. That street down there, by the way, that is Battery Street. Now, I did have a couple of videos on Battery Park. I'll put those in the link, those links in the description below. So if you were to head towards Battery Park, you would come down the end of this street, turn right, head up the hill, heading north, of course, and Battery Park would be on your left as you begin to crest the hill. Pro tip, you will never find parking near Battery Park. So, at that traffic light at the top of the hill, turn right onto Pearl Street and park in a metered space. And then just walk over. It's much easier that way. Pro tip number 2, if you also have a handicap placard, such as I, or even a handicap plate, you are allowed to park in any parking spot with a meter and not pay. You're allowed to park in any of the 3 municipal parking garages without paying as well. And Perkins Pier also, as long as you have your handicap placard displayed. Free parking for you. All right, the street we're on is called Battery Street. Excuse me, no, it's called College Street. The locals call it Lower College. There you go. If you were to drive to the top of College Street, the University of Vermont would be your site at the top. It's a beautiful site. All right, back to this building here. This is currently the Parmelo Real Estate. If you can see the sign there. And on their website, they do refer to this as their flagship property, as they should. It was designed and built in 1840 by Ammi B. Young, capital A-M-M-I, if you'd like to do any research on this gentleman. He also designed the second Vermont State House, and he was the supervising architect, first one of that variety, for the US Federal Treasury in Washington, D.C. This building was built for Timothy Follett. Interesting guy. So, Timothy Follett was a real estate investor and became the first president of the Rutland Railroad. Let's talk about the race to Burlington between the two rival railroads. There was the Rutland Railroad and the Central Vermont Railroad, both trying to get to Burlington first. Rutland Railroad, ding, 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 made it first. So, Mr. Follett was already a wealthy man. He owned other buildings in town, and he started the Merchants Bank as well. So, he was certainly comfortable. So, this place is in the Greek Revival style, which was very popular up until sometime in the 1850s. So let's talk about what elements you would look for in a building to see if it were actually Greek Revival style. So, looking at the building itself, in Greek Revival style, what does that mean exactly? It means that architects were looking back at ancient Greek temples for inspiration. So, looking at this is the original front entrance. And as I pan in, first of all, note the pediment at the top. Let's see if I can show you. Oh yeah, here we go. That right there, that triangular piece is known as the pediment. Think the Parthenon. At the top of the Parthenon, it has this pediment there with a frieze inside. Below that, there are columns. See these four are columns right there. They are in the Ionic, in the order of columns. They are Ionic, which is the means they have these curls. Let's see. Pretty sure I'm panned all the way in. I am panned all the way in. So they have curls on them. It's the second order of columns. It's Doric, Ionic, Corinthian. So these are Ionic columns. Also, on either side of the front door, I can only show you one from where I'm standing, there are rectangular windows. Those rectangular windows are called side lights. Side lights because they're on the sides of the front door, and lights because they let in natural light. Understand, in 1840, no electricity, so they're using candles and oil lamps. And the oil for oil lamps was actually fairly expensive. Candles also were expensive. So if they could use natural light, it would save them money. Also note how those columns are fluted. Those ridges are fluted. That's what fluting is. It makes things look straighter than they are. And note, it's also on this side porch over here. Those are also fluted columns. So those are some things to think about when you're thinking Greek Revival style, and it's typically masonry as well. The bricks, because this is made of brick, the bricks were actually made on site. And if you've ever wondered why bricks are different colors on different buildings, it's because of the dirt used on site. Whatever minerals are in the soil would translate into coloring for the bricks. Now, this building has always had a coat of whitewash on it because it was actually considered gauche to have plain brick showing. The cupola at the very top, and that's a cupola way up there. That square box up there is called a cupola, spelled C-U-P-O-L-A. Don't fall into my early trap of thinking it was cupola. No, it's pronounced cupola. That was added in the 1880s. I think it might also be called a belvedere, but cupola. Oops. Years ago, I had put out a tour CD. So you drive around Burlington and look at different buildings, including this one. I was invited in at the Parmelo real estate office here and given a one-on-one tour of the place. It was amazing. And I even got to sit up in that cupola there, looking out of the lake with the white caps. I could have done that all day, quite frankly. You should see the wide floor planking up there. It's incredible. I don't know, it's at least a foot wide planks, because up until 1850 they were using native timber. So in 1840, when this was built, I'm sure they used trees that were nearby. So let's talk. I'm going to go down the hill here and tell you a little bit about the side yard. So I'll be right back. Alrighty, now there's the side porch. Note the steps right there, leading past those columns with the fluted columns. And note also the Ionic. These are Ionic columns as well. Has a beautiful balcony on the second floor. And oops. All right, so what I'd like you to do is picture, so that this side door leads into the ballroom, what was the ballroom. So Every weekend, Mr. and Mrs. Follett would throw lavish dance parties. And if you could imagine Burlington elites, socialites, wanting to attend, this was grass all the way down to Battery Street. And it was terraced. We know it was terraced and lined with poppies because there was work done on the land several years ago, probably decades ago now. And they discovered the terracing as well as roots of poppies, so that the socialites would have to stand in line along the terrace to wait their turn to enter the ballroom. Pretty amazing. Unfortunately for Mr. Follett, his fortunes turned. By 1853, he had gone bankrupt because the Rutland Railroad had also gone bankrupt. So that was the first time it went bankrupt. It went bankrupt many, many times. But he lost his entire fortune. In fact, he wound up selling his house to Henry R. Campbell, who was the owner of the rival Central Vermont Railroad. Ugh. And as I recall, he sold it at a huge loss. So Mr. Follett's wife and children moved out. And what's interesting, and this is why it's always fun to be a researcher, such as I am, I was reading a geography book from 100 plus years ago on some unrelated topic. And there's this separate little paragraph about Timothy Follett and how he spent the rest of his life in a local sanitarium. Burlington had a few of those, but he died in 1857, a broken man. So this served as a private residence until about 1885, and from then on, the house had been owned by a variety of institutions, including the local chapter of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. In fact, when the VFW finally sold it to Parmelo in 1978, the place was in disrepair. It was a sad-looking building. I was a kid then, I remember reading accounts in the Burlington Free Press, our local paper, about how the wrecking ball was just days away from knocking this spectacular building down. What a huge waste that would have been. This is the last surviving grand 19th century lakeside mansion still in the city, and one of the state's finest examples of Greek Revival architecture. It was even listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1972. Soon after Parmelo bought it, there was a fire caused by arson. They never caught the person who tried to burn it down, but they were able to restore it regardless. And the interior is spectacular. It truly is. It's just wow. So anyway, this is one of my favorite buildings in Burlington. I hope you agree with that. I'm so glad this was not torn down, knocked down. No wrecking ball decided to use its strength, because what a waste that would have been. All right, thanks so much for coming with me today. You have a great night, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye.